I asked to see a $4,000 handbag. She looked me up and down and said, "That's for serious clients." So I bought out their rival store across the hall and walked past holding every bag they refused to show me. I never thought I'd be the type of person to write one of these "they judged me and regretted it" stories, but here we are. I'm still a little shaky just thinking about it. This happened about a month ago, but it's been living rent-free in my head ever since. For context, I'm a 34-year-old woman who owns a marketing consultancy that's been doing, let's just say, extremely well lately. My company just landed a 7-figure contract with a luxury skincare brand, one that, ironically, probably sells products to the same women who treated me like dirt. That day, I wasn't exactly dressed to impress. I'd been up since 5 a.m. working on a presentation deck, and I had back-to-back calls until lunchtime. When I finally came up for air, I realized I had about an hour before my next Zoom meeting. I was already out running an errand at the print shop, and on a whim, I decided to pop into this high-end handbag boutique I'd been eyeing for months. I was wearing black leggings, an oversized oatmeal sweater, and a pair of white sneakers that had definitely seen better days. My hair was in a low ponytail, and I had zero makeup on except maybe some tinted lip balm. To top it off, I was carrying a big canvas tote with my company's logo on it instead of any of my nicer purses because I hadn't planned on shopping. Honestly, I probably looked like the world's most tired soccer mom. But I was in such a good mood. This contract felt like a turning point, and I'd promised myself I'd finally buy the bag I'd been dreaming about, a structured satchel in a soft dove gray that would go with everything. It was stupidly expensive, but I could afford it now, and I wanted something tangible to mark this milestone. The moment I walked through the boutique's glass doors, I felt the air change. You know how some stores have that welcoming, slightly perfumed hush? This wasn't that. 2 saleswomen were standing behind the glass counter, tapping on an iPad. They both looked up, and for a second I thought maybe they were going to smile. Instead, one of them did this slow up and down look at me. Like she was scanning for any shred of designer labels, and then turned back to her colleague without saying a word. I hovered by the display case, pretending to look at the seasonal collection while I waited for someone to acknowledge me. Nothing. No greeting. No, "Can I help you?" Just more tapping and whispering. I could feel my face getting hot, and I tried to shake it off. Maybe they were busy with online orders. Maybe I was imagining things. Finally, I cleared my throat and took a step closer to the counter. "Hi, sorry to interrupt. I was hoping to see the gray satchel in the limited collection. I think you have it in the back." The taller saleswoman didn't look up. The other one raised her eyebrows and gave this tight, practiced smile. "That one's quite an investment piece." "Yeah, I know," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I've been saving for it." "Oh." She glanced at her colleague and let out a little exhale that was halfway to a laugh. "Well, it's actually reserved for preferred clients." I felt something drop in my stomach. Reserved? There wasn't anything about that online. She looked me up and down again, then tapped something on the iPad. "We only have one left." "Maybe. Have you tried our outlet location downtown? They have plenty of options at friendlier price points." It was the way she said friendlier price points that did it. Like she was patting a toddler on the head for trying on mommy's heels. I stood there for a second, not sure what to do. My first instinct was to blurt out that I could easily buy 10 of those bags if I wanted to, that my card wouldn't even blink. But something stopped me. Part of me felt embarrassed, like I'd been caught playing pretend in a store that wasn't meant for me. Another part of me was furious. I swallowed hard. "Okay," I said finally, voice shaking a little. "Thanks." Neither of them replied. They just went back to tapping on the iPad as I turned around and walked out, trying to keep my shoulders straight and my chin up. My face was burning. It felt like everyone in the store had seen that little exchange. I stepped back out into the mall corridor and just stood there, feeling humiliated and stupid and so angry. If I'd known what I was about to do next, I would have taken a selfie to remember the moment. But at that point, all I could think was that I never wanted to feel that small again. I stood in that corridor for what felt like a full minute, just breathing in through my nose and out through my mouth so I wouldn't cry. You'd think after years of running my own company, after dealing with plenty of condescending clients and arrogant CEOs, I'd be immune to being judged by strangers. But somehow, that moment, 2 saleswomen deciding I wasn't worth their time based on a ponytail and a tote bag, hit me right in the gut. I reached for my phone and texted my best friend, who has a sixth sense for when I'm about to spiral. Me, "You ever been treated like garbage in a store?" Her, "OMG. What happened?" Me, "They basically told me to go to the outlet because I looked poor." She called me immediately. I didn't even get a chance to say hello before she started. "Are you kidding me? Did you tell them who you are? You should have pulled up your revenue sheet and slapped it on the counter." I tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. "Yeah, because that's not humiliating." She was quiet for a second. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I lied. Just mad." "Good. Be mad. You work harder than anyone I know. You deserve that bag if you want it." I knew she was right, but in that moment I couldn't picture going back inside, not when I felt like I'd been slapped. So I told her I'd call later, hung up, and started walking toward the parking garage. My sneakers were squeaking on the polished floor, each step echoing like a reminder that I didn't belong here. That's when I caught a glimpse of my reflection in one of the mirrored columns, messy hair, tired eyes, cheap-looking canvas tote. And I thought, they don't know anything about me. I almost kept walking. But then I noticed another boutique across the hall. Their window display had the same collection of handbags, arranged in neat rows like a candy shop for grown women. The lighting looked warm. Inside, I could see a woman in a sleek black dress laughing with a customer. No one was ignoring anyone. I stopped in front of the glass. My heart was hammering in my chest. Part of me wanted to leave the mall and go home to lick my wounds. The other part, the part that built my business from scratch and clawed my way up every ladder, felt something start to harden. I thought about every time someone had assumed I wasn't the client or the boss. About the contractor last year who kept asking if my husband was the decision maker. About the banker who suggested I come back when you're ready to discuss serious investment. And suddenly, I wasn't embarrassed anymore. I was done. I squared my shoulders and took a deep breath. If the first store didn't want my money, fine. But someone else would be very happy to take it. And I was in exactly the mood to spend it. I pushed open the glass door of the second boutique, feeling my pulse flutter in my throat. Immediately, a young woman in a simple black shift dress looked up and smiled, actually smiled, and said, "Welcome in. How can I help you today?" Just that. A greeting like I was any other customer. Like I mattered. "I'm looking for a special bag," I said, feeling my voice come back to me. "And maybe a few others, if you have them." "Of course," she said, stepping out from behind the counter. "Let me show you what we have. Would you like a water or coffee while you browse?" That small gesture nearly undid me. I swallowed the knot in my throat and nodded. "Water, please." "Thank you." "No trouble at all," she said brightly. She gestured to a small velvet armchair near the main display. "Feel free to have a seat, I'll bring out our newest pieces. Just give me a moment." I sank into the chair, feeling like I'd crossed some invisible border from disdain into respect. It was amazing how fast it happened, how one person's kindness could counteract someone else's sneer. I glanced back through the glass storefront behind me, where I could see the two women in the first boutique still standing at their counter, oblivious to how close they'd come to making a very large sale. Part of me hoped they'd look up. Part of me hoped they'd stay exactly as clueless as they were. Either way, I knew one thing. I was going to walk out of this mall with my head high. And maybe a few bags on my arm, just to prove a point. I must have looked like a total wreck, sitting in that little velvet chair, clutching my canvas tote in one hand and a bottle of water in the other. But in that moment, I didn't care anymore. I was determined to remind myself that I deserved to be there as much as anyone else. While I took a few calming sips, the sales associate disappeared into the back. I watched the other customers browsing. There was a woman in tailored slacks and a crisp white blouse, tapping her credit card impatiently, and an older man in a sport coat examining a briefcase. Not one of them even glanced at me. It was the most refreshing anonymity I'd ever felt. When the associate came back, she was carrying 3 of the exact bags I'd been searching for, including the soft dove gray satchel that started this whole ordeal. She set them down carefully on the glass table in front of me and started explaining the details: the leather finish, the limited production, the warranty. She spoke to me like a normal person, like a customer, not a nuisance. I picked up the gray one and turned it over in my hands. It was even more beautiful up close. The stitching was perfect, and the clasp had this satisfying weight when I clicked it open. "I've been thinking about this one for months," I admitted. My voice was steadier now. "It's one of our most popular colors," she said with a warm smile. "I have a matching wallet in the back, if you'd like to see it. And we just received 2 other shades, one in a deep oxblood and one in navy." Something clicked in me then. Maybe it was ego, or maybe it was pride, but I thought, why stop at one bag? "Sure," I said. "Bring those out too." She nodded and glided away again. I watched her disappear behind a curtain, and I couldn't help glancing over my shoulder. Through the wide glass windows of the first boutique, I saw the same 2 women standing behind the counter. The tall one was scrolling on her phone, and the other was folding tissue paper into a shopping bag. Neither of them had noticed me yet. I turned back around just as the associate returned, her arms laden with more bags and matching wallets. She arranged them in neat rows, careful not to crowd the table. "Would you like to try them over your shoulder?" she asked. I nodded, and she helped me loop the straps, one by one, demonstrating how each bag would fall against my hip. She even offered to hold a mirror so I could see the side view. It was such a simple courtesy, but after what had just happened across the hall, it felt almost radical. "These are all beautiful," I said finally, setting the last one down. "And you've been incredibly helpful." "It's truly my pleasure," she said. I thought about it for a moment, about how I wanted this day to end. About what would feel good, not petty. And I realized that buying these bags wasn't about proving anything to the women next door. It was about proving something to myself, that I didn't need anyone else's validation to know my worth. But if it also happened to send a message, well, that would just be a bonus. "I'd like all 3 of these," I said. My heart thudded in my chest as I said it out loud. And the matching wallets, please. She blinked in surprise for just a second before her professional smile returned. Absolutely. Let me prepare everything. Would you prefer them boxed separately or together? Separately, I said. They're gifts. Technically, that wasn't a lie. I planned to keep one, but the others were going to my mother and my business partner, both of whom had spent years reminding me that treating myself wasn't frivolous. Perfect, she said, making a note on her little clipboard. I'll start wrapping them up. As she worked, I sat back in that chair and felt the tightness in my chest finally start to ease. I thought about the years I'd spent feeling like I had to dress a certain way to be taken seriously. About the times I'd second-guessed myself for wanting nice things. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught another glimpse of the boutique across the hall. The taller saleswoman had finally looked up. Her eyes landed on me, on the growing tower of boxes, on the associate carefully arranging satin dust bags. Her mouth fell open just a little before she caught herself and looked back down. I turned back to my new bags, letting the satisfaction wash over me. It's funny how quickly the energy shifts when people realize you can spend real money. As soon as I confirmed my purchase, the boutique's manager came over to introduce herself. She was probably in her late 40s, dressed in a simple black pantsuit with delicate gold jewelry. She didn't look me up and down or try to size me up, she just extended her hand. I wanted to thank you personally for choosing us today, she said, her voice warm and professional. It's an honor to help you find something special. I felt myself relax even more. No false flattery, no judgment, just good service. I shook her hand and smiled. I really appreciate how welcoming everyone has been, I said. It's been a day. She nodded, like she understood exactly what I meant without needing the backstory. If there's anything else you'd like to see, we're happy to assist. Or if you'd prefer privacy, we can arrange a personal shopping appointment at your convenience. I glanced at the neat line of boxes waiting to be wrapped and had to bite back a laugh. Part of me wanted to say, oh, it's no big deal. Just buying a few gifts. But the other part, the part that was still smoldering from being humiliated across the hall, felt something deliciously defiant rise up in my chest. Actually, I said slowly, do you have any of the small crossbody styles in stock? The ones with the gold hardware. Her face lit up. We do. Would you like to see them in all colors? Yes, please, I said, my heart beating a little faster. I knew exactly what I was doing. And it wasn't about revenge so much as reclaiming the part of me that used to feel ashamed of enjoying nice things. While she went to retrieve the crossbody bags, I scrolled through my emails to double-check my schedule. I still had a Zoom meeting in an hour. Part of me thought I should just get my purchases and go, but another part whispered, no, take your time. A few minutes later, the manager returned with 3 more styles, black, cognac, and a blush pink. They were beautiful, and I knew immediately that the black one was going home with me. I'll take the black, I said, my voice calm and steady. And could you add a matching card holder, if you have it? Absolutely, she said without missing a beat. It will be my pleasure. At this point, the tower of boxes had grown so tall that the associate asked if I'd like them delivered to my car. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to march them all right past the boutique across the hall, and part of me felt that was too petty. Then I looked up. Through the glass storefront, I caught the eye of the same saleswoman who'd told me to try the outlet. She froze when she realized I was staring right back at her. For the first time all day, I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt powerful. I think I'd like to carry them out myself, I said, my voice soft but firm. Thank you. Of course, she replied, not batting an eye. I'll have someone help you to the escalator when you're ready. While they boxed up the last bag, I took out my wallet and slid my black card across the counter. It felt almost symbolic, like staking a flag on the high ground I'd finally claimed. The transaction went through in seconds, without so much as a raised eyebrow. I signed the receipt, tucked it neatly into my tote, and stood up to stretch. As the associate brought over the stack of boxes, she asked if I'd like a receipt emailed as well. Yes, please, I said. And if you don't mind, could you send a note of thanks to your team? You've all been wonderful. Her face softened. Of course. That means a lot. I took a deep breath, feeling that old tightness in my chest finally start to dissolve. I glanced over at the other boutique one last time. The taller saleswoman was staring, her lips pressed into a thin line. I didn't look away. I didn't have to. Once everything was packed and the receipt safely tucked away, the associate offered to help me carry my bags to the escalator. I must have looked slightly ridiculous, 2 large shopping bags in each hand, plus my canvas tote slung over my shoulder. But I didn't care at all. If anything, I felt lighter than I had all week. As we stepped out of the boutique into the corridor, the first thing I saw was the boutique across the hall. The tall saleswoman had her back turned, but her colleague spotted me immediately. Her eyes flicked from the bags to my face to the bags again, widening with something between confusion and horror. I gave her a polite, small smile, nothing too smug, just enough to let her know I saw her seeing me. The associate walking with me seemed to sense exactly what was happening without needing any explanation. She didn't rush me along, didn't look nervous. just matched my pace as we walked past the other storefront. I tried to keep my expression neutral, but I'll be honest, part of me was savoring every second. As we passed directly in front of their window, the taller saleswoman finally turned around. Our eyes locked. She stared at the armfuls of bags, then back at me, and I could see the realization bloom on her face like a slow, ugly flower. I didn't break eye contact. Not out of spite exactly, but because for the first time that afternoon, I felt in control of the narrative. I wasn't the embarrassed woman they'd dismissed. I wasn't someone pretending to belong. I was a paying customer who'd simply chosen to spend her money elsewhere. And in that moment, I didn't feel petty, I felt vindicated. The associate slowed just slightly, almost like she was giving me a chance to pause if I wanted to, but I kept walking. I didn't need a scene. The scene was already happening in their heads. As we reached the escalator, she turned to me and asked softly, "Would you like me to help you all the way to your car?" I considered it. My car was in the underground garage, and it would have been easier. But there was something symbolic about carrying everything myself. "No, thank you," I said. "I've got it from here." "Of course," she said, smiling warmly. "Enjoy your day, and congratulations." I nodded and adjusted the bags in my hands. They were heavy, but it felt good, like carrying the weight of my own worth. I stepped onto the escalator and looked back one last time. Through the glass storefront, I could see the two women standing frozen behind their counter, still watching me. I didn't wave. I didn't smile again. I just turned and faced forward, letting the escalator carry me away. The entire ride down, my heart was hammering, but not from humiliation this time. From exhilaration. When I finally reached the garage level, I set the bags down carefully to dig out my keys. My phone buzzed in my tote, my best friend texting to ask how it went. I typed back with one hand, grinning so hard my cheeks hurt, better than I ever expected. I loaded everything into the trunk, one bag at a time, taking care not to crush any boxes. It struck me how different I felt from an hour earlier. That first walk out of the boutique had felt like defeat. This felt like closure. I climbed into the driver's seat and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, just breathing. The thing that kept running through my head was how quick people are to decide who matters. How much power they think they have to make you feel small. But the truth is that power only works if you let them have it. I'd let them have it for about 15 minutes. That was more than enough. I drove home with my music blasting, the trunk full of glossy boxes, feeling like I'd just walked out of a movie where the underdog finally gets her moment. But it wasn't just about the bags. It was about how easily those women had decided I didn't count, how fast they'd written me off because I wasn't in a blazer and heels that day. When I pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car a minute longer, watching the late afternoon light slant across the hood. It hit me how many times in my life I'd been made to feel like I didn't belong in certain spaces, boardrooms, networking events, expensive stores. Like I needed to prove I was worthy before anyone would take me seriously. I thought about the first few years I'd started my business, when I couldn't afford much beyond clearance rack suits and sensible flats. Back then, I'd sometimes wonder if there was a secret password everyone else knew, some hidden signal that said, I deserve to be here. It took me years to figure out that there wasn't any password. The only people who act like you need one are the ones who are afraid you'll realize how arbitrary it all is. I carried all the boxes inside, stacking them on my dining room table. One by one, I unwrapped them. The soft dove gray satchel, the black crossbody, the blush wallet. Each piece felt like a quiet declaration. I earned this. Not because of a label or a price tag, but because I decided I was allowed to have nice things. No one else gets to gatekeep that. After everything was unboxed, I took a quick photo to send to my mom and my best friend. My mom called immediately. "Good for you," she said as soon as I answered. "Don't ever let people make you feel like you have to explain yourself." "I won't," I promised. And for the first time, I really believed it. Later that evening, I sat down with my laptop and wrote a short post about what happened. I didn't name the boutique. I wasn't interested in stirring up some viral drama. I just wanted to remind people that the way you treat someone who looks like they can't do anything for you says everything about your character. I talked about how kindness costs nothing, how respect shouldn't be reserved for whoever's wearing the most expensive shoes. I ended the post with this: you never know who's walking through your door. You never know whose day you might be making or ruining. Choose better. I hit publish and shut my laptop. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of messages from people saying they'd had the same experience, being underestimated, being dismissed. Some of them were strangers. Some were old colleagues I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them said some version of, "Thank you. I needed to hear this." It was funny, just 12 hours earlier, I'd felt small and humiliated. But now, I felt like I'd taken that moment and turned it into something useful. Something bigger than just a petty retail story. And as for the boutique that turned me away, I haven't set foot in there again. Not because I'm holding a grudge, but because I don't need anything from them anymore. There are plenty of places and people who understand that dignity doesn't come with a price tag. And if I ever find myself on the other side of the counter, whether it's hiring someone, meeting a client, or just passing a stranger in line, I hope I'll remember exactly how it felt to be treated like nothing. I hope I'll always choose better.